Hey, good morning, everybody. In this last section of the book of Acts, we are reading about Paul's third and final missionary journey. And in chapter 20, Paul begins the return leg of his third missionary journey. And he spent some significant time in Ephesus saying goodbye to his leaders of the Ephesus church. And it was kind of an emotional goodbye. Perhaps Paul is sensing that this is the coming towards the end of his ministry, at the end of his life. So now, as we pick up in chapter 21, Paul is traveling, and he's traveling through Rhodes. Actually, Rhodes is an island, so he travels around Rhodes, and he goes to Patara, and then past Cyprus, another island, until he arrives at the mainland, the city of Tyre, Tyre. And Tyre is located on the border of what would be the southern border of modern-day Lebanon and northern Israel. And as he heads towards Jerusalem, he stops in Tyre, and then he moves down to Caesarea, which is a little bit south of there on the coast. And in both places, as he stops to wish his friends well, all of his friends are telling him, do not go to Jerusalem. If you go to Jerusalem, you're going to be arrested. But Paul is bound and determined that God is calling him to go to Jerusalem. So we learn a little bit more about what's going on here. In Acts chapter 15, we remember that we read about it's called the Jerusalem Council. It was a meeting of the leaders of the church in Jerusalem to determine about this new thing called salvation for the Gentiles. Was Jesus the Savior for the Gentiles too? And they determined that yes, he was, and that in fact the Gentile Christians do not need to follow the Jewish traditions to properly follow Jesus. And following Jesus was simply repenting of one's sins and realizing that they need a Savior, and then trusting their life to the crucified and risen Jesus for forgiveness and for the future. And that's what salvation is all about. So Luke tells us what happens next. And so we pick it up in verse 18 of chapter 21. It says, the next day, Paul went with us to meet with James, and all the elders of the Jerusalem church were present. After greeting them, Paul gave a detailed account of the things that God had accomplished among the Gentiles through his ministry. After hearing this, they praised God, and then they said, you know, dear brother, how many thousands of Jews have also believed, and they all follow the law of Moses very seriously. But the Jewish believers here in Jerusalem have been told that you are teaching all the Jews who live among the Gentiles to turn their backs on the laws of Moses. They've heard that you teach them not to circumcise their children or to follow other Jewish customs. What should we do? They will certainly hear that you have come. Here's what we want you to do. We have 4 men who have completed their vow. Go with them to the temple and join them in the purification ceremony, paying for them to have their heads ritually shaved. Then everyone will know that the rumors are all false and that you yourself observe the Jewish laws. And so Paul, to appease those from the Jewish tradition, agrees to do what James suggests. But ultimately, it does not ultimately satisfy, as I say, these tradition-bound Jews. And they begin to spread rumors about Paul, and they cause a riot, and because of the riot results in Paul's arrest by a mob. And there's a mob shouting that Paul should be killed, much like the mob shouted Jesus should be killed. Now, the story continues tomorrow, and you're not going to want to miss that. But what Paul does is very inspiring. But this whole series of circumstances has me thinking about the fact that Paul's life is the life of a faithful follower of Jesus. But he faces constant trials and suffering through this time. James, the guy we've been talking about, the leader of the Jerusalem church, writes this in chapter 1 of his letter. He says, when, not if, but when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. If you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking. Quite honestly, it's when we're in the middle of our troubles and when we're really trusting God that we really sense his presence like no other time. Paul's example in these chapters and Jesus' promise about the fact that we will have persecution, but be of good cheer, for he has overcome the world. And then James' words of encouragement are amazing, and they're pure gold for us as we face the troubles that we're going to face in our life too. So may these chapters, and these promises that we've read today be an encouragement and an inspiration for us and for our life. Have a joy-filled day.
If these devotional videos are helpful to you, subscribe to our channel and click the notification button so you know when we post a new video. And of course, please share them with others.